Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Ignition Time. Boy, oh boy, the Republicans are going to make it as hard as possible, as painful as possible for the Democrats to pass this massive $1.9 trillion stimulus package on the floor of the Senate. Folks, we have new information, new reporting where the Republicans want the entire bill to be read so that they can essentially try and rip it apart, and they're going to try and drag this on. I'm expecting tens of hours of debates. Yes, you heard that right. I'm expecting tens of hours of debate on the floor of the United States Senate, but I want to be as clear as I can for our viewers and subscribers. I expect the bill to pass. Again, I expect the bill to pass because the Democrats have 51 votes, including the vote of the vice president, the tie-breaking vote of the vice president, Kamala Harris. But folks, this is going to be quite dramatic, and a lot of Republicans have already come out and spoken against this plan. Today, on the floor of the Senate, John Thune, the Republican minority whip, spoke out against the plan. Let's take a look at some of the comments from John Thune, and then I'll break down exactly how the Republicans are going to make the passing of the stimulus package as painful as possible. Although I believe the stimulus package will pass. Pretty incredible what they're doing. Let's take a look at what John Thune has been up to. I'm going to show you some of his comments, and then I'll tell you exactly what they're doing. But if you hear from John Thune, you'll sort of get a taste of what lies ahead of us. Let's take a look at comments on the floor of the Senate today from Senator Thune from South Dakota. Let's take a look.
Be exact. Out of those 245 amendments, Democrats accepted exactly one for the final bill. One, Mr. President. Among the amendments House Democrats rejected were common sense proposals to the school funding, to the reopening, to tie, I should say, school funding to the reopening of schools. There was an amendment to unfreeze funding for the coronavirus food assistance program for farmers and ranchers. There were amendments to...
And as John Thune starts to rip apart the program, let me give our viewers and subscribers a sense of what's going on. Republicans are going to make it as painful as possible to pass this stimulus plan. The Republicans have decided to force a reading of the entire stimulus package. Now, it could take tens of hours. It could take potentially 20 hours to do this reading. So there's a lot of reading of the bill. Then there's going to be debate time where they'll set aside time to debate this entire stimulus package. And then the bill is going to be introduced, and then we'll have a vote-a-rama where different senators will say, I want this, I want that. Let's do a vote on this, let's do a vote on that. And I can assure you that this is going to be quite a dramatic process where the vote-a-rama will create essentially a sense, if you will, of further chaos. Let's get back to John Thune. And let's take a look at what's going on with John Thune. Let me go back there, and let's see what he's talking about, and then I'll give you some more details.
In this legislation, like the $86 billion bailout of multi-employer pension plans. Hardly a coronavirus emergency. They might have been forced to trim their slush fund for states and ensure that the distribution formula wasn't weighted heavily in favor of blue states. Senator from Illinois was just down here talking about the importance of helping out the states. Well, under the formula that they've designed for this relief package, the dollars skew heavily, surprisingly, to states like New York, where the Democrat leader is from, or California, where the House Speaker is from, or Illinois, where the Senate Democrat whip is from.
So as he's speaking, let me give you some more information. Senator Ron Johnson from Wisconsin said, and I quote, I'm going to make them read that thing, probably take about 10 hours. That is what he said. And Chuck Schumer hasn't really commented about this intention from Ron Johnson. Now, keep in mind that this entire bill, the draft that we got was almost 600 pages. It was 591 pages. We can expect the final draft to be even longer because it is going to include all the specific details of the entire law. So we can expect the entire bill to emerge shortly, and then the 20 plus hours of debate will begin, followed by the vote-a-rama. Here's a comment from Senator Joni Ernst, the Republican from Iowa. I think you're going to want to watch. I think it's going to be great. This is the senator saying, I'm quoting the senator. I think you're going to want to watch. I think it's going to be great. We're really going to continue to hammer on all the nonsense that's non-COVID related that has been packed into the Democratic wish list. I think you're going to see a lot of amendments coming from our members, and they're going to be good, solid amendments trying to decrease some of the line item funding that you see in non-COVID items, as well as trying to make more sensible adjustments to the rest of the package. Pretty incredible, folks. The first and the second stimulus package did include money for stimulus checks and unemployment, which are technically non-pandemic related, because when you say pandemic related, you're talking about vaccines, you're talking about distribution of the vaccine. But the Republicans are making a major partisan issue out of this. And Ron Johnson was on the floor of the Senate today, everyone, with a chart saying that it would take 60,230 years to spend $1.9 trillion at $1 per second. So I'm sure that this was valuable information for you. I think that perhaps Senator Ron Johnson thinks that, I'm quoting, it's going to take 60,230 years to spend $1.9 trillion at $1 per second is more important than maybe you putting food on the table, keeping the lights on, feeding your family, and making rent. So, hey, Ron Johnson also said humans only developed language around 50,000 years ago. There's a point there. There's a point. He says, then there was a quick, basically, he went on and on about Wisconsin was covered with a mile of ice back then. And then he said, now that's climate change. And then he came back with another chart where he showed a stack of $1 trillion in dollar bills. And he said that would be 67,886 miles high. So, by the way, that's why you come to the Ignition Time channel, to know that a stack of $1 trillion in dollar bills is 67,866 miles high. So it's up to you to decide whether this is nonsense or the components of the bill are nonsense. You be the judge. Let's listen in real quick to John Thune, and I'll come back with some closing comments.
In negotiating, sitting down with Democrats to do just that. The Democrat whip, senator from Illinois, was just down here saying, boy, wouldn't it be great if this could be bipartisan like the other bills that we've done earlier that were bipartisan. I would simply point out the obvious, Mr. President, and that is that all the bills that were done last year when Republicans had the majority here in the Senate were bipartisan because we did them under regular order. We did them under the 60-vote threshold that's required to move legislation through the Senate. What the Democrat leadership has opted to do is to use a rarely used legislative vehicle here, budget reconciliation, to do a
I have to stop him right there. He says rarely used budget reconciliation, but what he's leaving out is that the Republicans used budget reconciliation to pass the massive $2 trillion in tax cuts. The Republicans tried to use budget reconciliation to strike down Obamacare. He's going to leave that out, as you can expect all politicians to do. But this is used by parties when it is politically expedient. So he's going to leave that part out, of course. So I figured I would chime in with that. Let's listen to John Thune for a minute or two, and then I'll give you my closing comments.
Things that they can do simply with 51 votes, and it was pretty clear to me that they had no intention ever of including Republican ideas or involving Republicans in developing this legislation or ultimately having Republican support for it in the end. In fact, that was probably made most clear by a statement made by the
So I have a
Chief of
question for
Staff,
our viewers and subscribers. Do you think
President Biden, and the White
that
House, as they
that the
described
Democrats
it,
had no intention to involve the Republicans? Let me know what you think about that assertion from John Thune.
suggesting, of course, that this is filled with all kinds of liberal priorities, most of which have very little to do with the coronavirus. In fact, if you look at where the funding goes in this, so the $1.9 trillion, less than 10%, Mr. President, deals with funding for public health care. In other words, funding for vaccines, either for production or distribution, funding for providers, funding for...
So we've heard all of those things before. So folks, let me know what you think in the comment section below. John Thune's comments, the intentions of the Republicans to make things as painful as possible when it comes to the passage of the $1.9 trillion stimulus package. Those pretty interesting comments, those pretty interesting statistics, if you will, from these Republicans, from Ron Johnson specifically. Not sure exactly what he was trying to say. I guess he was trying to say that the Republicans are fiscally conservative, and the Democrats want to spend money like there's no tomorrow. And those statistics were pretty incredible. Hey, if you walk away from this video learning some important statistics from Senator Ron Johnson, I'm sure I've made your day. But folks, if you want to make my day, please click the like button, please subscribe, please enable notifications. Thank you so much for watching. I will keep you posted. I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next episode of Ignition Time. Take care. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.